Zoom now. Okay, you're live and ready to go, Harry?
Okay, thank you very much, Matt. Good afternoon, everybody. I feel slightly strange being new chairman of a committee I've never sat on. So you'll have to excuse me. My inexperience will show through, no doubt. Right, have we got any apologies for absence?
None received.
Thank you, Matt. Any public questions?
None received.
Right, yeah. Any items? We've got the minutes to approve.
Yeah, just a note for members here. I explained this to Harry, but because the last meeting of the Standards Committee was a hearing, didn't really feel appropriate to discuss minutes of a previous meeting there when we had complainants attending. So I thought minutes from a meeting held on 1st of October 2019, which do need to be approved. There's only 3 people in attendance today that were at that meeting, so I'd ask that it's Councillor Nigel Dixon, Councillor John Rest and Councillor Lucy Scherz, when we approve those 2019 minutes, if you could just say that you're happy with those if you are, essentially, and then we move on to those hearing minutes from the last meeting are exempt. So if anyone did want to discuss the content of those, it would need to be in private business.
Okay, if anybody has any comments on the restricted minutes, I suggest we leave those to the end of the meeting.
Yep.
Nigel,
you have your hand raised.
Councillor Dixon.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted just to raise a matter in connection with these minutes, and strictly speaking, it doesn't fall, I don't think, within the strict definition of accuracy, but the point I wanted to raise is on page 4, and it's in relation to the resolutions that we made in relation to an item there. There were 3 resolutions, and resolution 2 and 3, I think we are maybe possibly deficient in that we don't have on our agenda any opportunity to follow up whether these actions have been delivered or not. So my question would be, have those 2 actions that are listed on page 4, items 2 and 3, been followed up and delivered or not? And the wider point that I would raise is, should we have on our agenda in the future any actions arising from those minutes, Mr. Chairman?
Okay, thank you very much. I think I'll go to Emma Duncan. Perhaps you could give us an update on that, please, Emma.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We, in terms of the item number 2, so the noting is as the noting is, but in terms of the information, access to information provisions, we did do that as part of the induction process for members this year, which was offered to all members post-May 2019. So that has been covered. We did a number of sessions on access to information, but also we covered data protection and freedom of information as well at the same time. So that's been followed up. And I think that Emma's in on the meeting as well, but I understand she has reminded the group leaders around substitution and attendance at meetings and giving apologies as well.
Thank you very much. Does that answer your query, Councillor Dixon?
I'm not entirely clear when the monitoring officer speaks of the induction training. Was that the induction training carried out in following the May election, or was that induction training that had been subsequently carried out in 2020?
We've done both actually, Councillor Dixon. We did induction training, which all members could attend, so new members and old members. But there's also been some training on general access to information provisions as well, in terms of what members can access in terms of other training. So when we've done good governance and decision making, we've covered it as part of that as well.
Okay, that's fine. I think, Mr. Chairman, I would just leave you with the wider point about the agenda, perhaps including in future an opportunity for actions following the last meeting to be followed up.
Okay, I mean, I'm quite happy with that. Can I go to Emma Denny and see if that can be included in our agenda?
Yes, absolutely, Chairman. We can include a standing item on the agenda for members to receive updates as we do. We do it for scrutiny and for audit committee, so that's fine. Matt can include that for future meetings going forward.
Thank you very much, Emma. Is everybody happy with that? General nods, thumbs, lovely. Thank you very much. So we'll carry on then. So we're quite happy with the minutes then. The 3 people who were actually there for the last meeting. So can we pass those minutes now?
Can I just see raised hand from those that were there? So it's Councillor Dixon, Rest and Shires.
Yeah, then that's unanimous.
Yep.
Okay.
There's the minutes from the meeting held on 3rd of March 2020, when I believe Councillor Brown, Councillor Perry-Warnes, Councillor Rest, Councillor Butikofer and Councillor Shires were in attendance.
Okay, and sorry, Matt, is that the on that meeting? Is that the meeting that it is was the hearing?
It was the hearing, yeah. The exempt minutes from that hearing, yeah.
That's the exempt minutes. So anybody who's at that meeting, you've had a chance to read those, the hearing. If you have any comments that are general and not in any way subject to the restriction, do you have any comments to make now? Or if not, as I say, I will hold it over to the end of the meeting. No, there doesn't seem to be any.
All I want to say is that I thought they were very accurate, and considering it was quite a challenging meeting, I thought the notes and the minutes were, in my view, accurate.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor. Okay, so if it's all right with everybody, could I have a nod of agreement in passing the minutes for that hearing, please? General thumbs up.
Yes, everyone in attendance is agreed, yeah. Okay.
Everybody who's attended. Thank you very much. So that's passed. Right. Do we have any items of urgent business?
Received.
Okay. Any declarations of interest? Which would be strange. No. So none was there. So we go to District Members Registry of Interests and Officers Register of Gifts and Hospitality, item 6 on the menu, on the agenda, sorry. Catering's coming out there. And I believe that starts on page, agenda item 7. And I believe that starts on page, 28 to 29 on the agenda. And to take us through that, I believe Emma Duncan will take us through this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, this is the annual report, which has already been considered by Governance, Risk and Audit Committee because it covers some areas that the Governance Risk and Audit Committee have responsibility for. It focuses mainly on the statutory obligations, and it gives an explanation of what's happened during the year in the various areas that the monitoring officer has responsibility for. That year ended in April 2020, so it doesn't cover issues that have been raised past that. There are the key areas is that the controls are adequate, but there are always some areas where we can do better, or that we require review on, because it's time for those policies to be reviewed. So we're still implementing the project governance review recommendations that came out from a number of audits. Those are being implemented through the new corporate delivery unit, as far as I understand it. But that action has been implemented into the annual governance statement action plan, which GRAC have control over. So GRAC will be monitoring and seeing whether those improvements have been implemented in terms of that. Our performance management framework is also due for review this year. And in discussion with the Section 151 officer, we need to expand the performance management framework to include service planning and risk. So that's also an action that's gone into the annual governance statement action plan. The corruption and anti-fraud policy at the time of writing the report was due for review, but it's now been reviewed, and that's been through to Cabinet and to Governance Risk and Audit for approval, and has been approved. So that's one that's ticked off. The new member code of conduct has been consulted on, and when it is adopted, will require implementation, and members have had a consultation session on that, or an engagement session on that through Zoom. And one of the areas this year I think that we could reasonably look at is the member officer protocol in terms of the relationships between members and officers and the respective roles. That's something which hasn't been looked at for a number of years, and could usefully be looked at this year. So I'm happy to take any questions. If we do need to go into a bit more detail, then I think that we would need to go into private session on that. So we'll need a resolution for that, Chair. But I'm happy to answer members' questions on the report.
Right, thank you very much, Emma. I think it's a very thorough report, and I would ask anybody if they have any questions on it. Councillor Dixon.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got a number of questions, actually, and if I might run through them in the order that they appear in the document. On page 29, could I draw your attention to item C, which is at the bottom of the page, and in particular the first statement there, which says that all members of both district and parish councils completed new returns following the elections in May of 2019. And that statement in particular, I'm wondering whether that's actually, strictly speaking, an accurate statement.
I think perhaps I'll take Emma's advice on this. Before we go any deeper into this, Emma, do we need to go into private session?
I think that would be helpful, Chair, yes, and then I can explain in a bit more detail.
Okay, can I have a vote on whether we go into private session?
We just have a proposer and a seconder first.
Oh, sorry, do I have a proposer? Councillor John Rest proposes, Councillor Dixon seconds. And could I have a show of hands? See if that
Just
is.
do a formal, I'll do a roll call vote.
Oh, you do a roll. Okay, okay, Matt, thank you.
So I'll just call your name, and if you can answer for or against, please. So Councillor Blathwaite.
For.
Councillor Rest.
For.
Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Butikofer,
For.
Councillor Dick,
For.
Councillor Perry-Warnes,
For.
and Councillor Shires.
For.
Okay, let me just stop the live stream.